The Diggers were a radical community-based anarchist street theater group of action-based activists who broke off from the San Francisco mime troupe. Based in the Haight Ashbury, the Diggers would administer community programs from 1966 to early 1968. They were named after the original English diggers from 1649, who were a group of religious and political dissidents. The original English diggers sought a society free from the ills of capitalist corruption through money and property ownership, which formed the basic philosophy for the 1960s version of the Haight Street group. The Diggers added a flair of drama to their happenings due to their beginnings in the mime troupe and guerrilla theater tactics. Their operating philosophy was left-wing communism, and their services and dedication to the public based upon utopian Marxist ideals. The Diggers self-described themselves as a community anarchist who would blend their desire for freedom with a consciousness from within the community they lived. Their main goal was to be altruistic, if not authentic, seeking a society void of capitalism and the influence of money. The Diggers quickly became an important asset to the Haight Street community in 1966. At one point, they had an underground publishing arm known as the Communications Company, or Comco, whose offices would be run out of Glide Memorial Church in the Tenderloin. Their relationship with Comco can be best described as a collaboration with the Diggers' mission. In the beginning, they would print and distribute messages, broadsides, leaflets, and handbills on a regular and spontaneous basis. Most of the printing arm focused on printing events recurring or related to or within Haight Ashbury. In their printing, sarcasm and mockery of modern-day society and capitalism, as well as wealth, abound with the underlying message of free, or freedom in the sense that nothing is owned. They also took advantage of the opportunity to heavily promote goodwill in the Haight Street District community in the 1960s, all the while addressing the ills that created these problems, such as police brutality, homelessness, racial issues, and lack of opportunity, which eventually led back to their concept of a free society. In contrast to the peace and love message promoted by the Oracle newspaper, in radical anarchist style, they attempted to shed light on the darker aspects of the Haight District as a community. In taking on peace and love messaging with a stark dose of reality, they also attempted to take on the position of Timothy Leary, who was the Acid King guru at the time. Leary had the same angle as the Oracle, only backed by various doses of LSD and messages such as turn on, tune in, and drop out. The Diggers did not have much success other than directed sarcasm toward either, but the greater message of taking care of the community and occasionally providing entertaining theater was their real contribution to the time. Chester Anderson, who helped start the Digger paper Comco, as it came to be known, had a problematic relationship with Emmett Grogan, which facilitated his exit in August of 1967. The problems were mostly due to the Diggers wanting to move in and actually control the paper. Claude Hayward, the other partner, would stay until the eventual disbandment of both the Diggers and Comco in early 1968. The Diggers also threw parties and fundraisers to support their programs and mission. Many local bands at the time, such as Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin and Big Brother, and Jefferson Airplane, would often be the headliner. The Diggers had an extensive food program throughout the Haight Street District from 1966 to early 1968. Often donations of food and money were given by the public and business to support the Diggers' mission. These were not the only means by which they would attain food items, however. When it came to the feeding downtrodden poor hippies, they would occasionally resort to stealing meat, but most often would buy imperfect, unsaleable products to serve their famous free stews at the Page Street Garage and Hippie Hill in Golden Gate Park. Their theater background inclined them to a lot of theater play in the streets. At one such incident, they drove a truck of naked belly dancers through the financial district, beckoning brokers to climb on board to party and forget their work. On December 17, 1966, the Diggers staged the Death of Money, where they dressed in animal heads, carrying a large coffin of fake money in a parade down Haight Street. They sang "Get Out of My Life, Why Don't You, Babe," while Chopin's funeral march played in the background. This was symbolic to their disdain of money, ownership, and the capitalist system. In February 1967, the Diggers staged what became known as the Invisible Circus in the basement of Glide Memorial Methodist Church in the Tenderloin. The Invisible Circus can be best described as a hedonist fair with a ritualistic bend indoors at a church, which was typical satire coming from a group like the Diggers. The fair consisted of several rooms set up to fulfill people's innermost fantasies of the time, which were usually sexual. Rooms were also set up to teach people how to master other skills, such as painting, tie-dye, and tarot cards, and the cafeteria, which offered LSD-laced drinks to enhance the experience. In October 1967, the influx of massive amounts of individuals all over the country, they staged a parade called the Death of the Hippie, to signify the end of the true hippie era in the Haight Ashbury, where mass participants carried a coffin with the words "Hippie Son of Media" on the side. By mid-1967, the Diggers network had expanded to include 2 free thrift stores, a bakery function, a press company function, and medical services, as well as the free feed they provided out of the Page Street garage and in the Panhandle every evening. They also housed homeless youth through their network and their headquarters based out of the Clayton Street house. If there were leaders, they would have been Emmett Grogan, Peter Coyote, and Peter Berg. Leaders were not a thing to the Diggers because people were free and no one owned anything in a truly free society. The Diggers' free thrift stores were located at the corner of Cole and Carl Street, 520 Frederick Street, and for a while out of the Page Street garage. Free thrift stores were also staffed with 3 volunteer medical residents from the nearby UCSF Parnassus campus, which would provide free medical care on most evenings. This was a difficult task due to the drug issues and STDs which were prevalent at the time. The greater San Francisco public would donate used items, and people would come in and take what they wanted. The Diggers were able to use a stove provided by a local church at 1350 Waller Street. This became a makeshift bakery where they would make their famous loaves of whole wheat bread. The loaves would be given away to the needy and used for the free Hippie Hill feeds in Golden Gate Park. By 1968, the area began to become overcrowded and decline with the influx of people from all over the country, including predators who had descended on the Haight to live out their version of free love. Their ideas happened to be incongruent to that of the older hippie set from 1965 forward. It also happened that the Diggers filled in where there was a need, not really thinking in terms of making themselves permanent mainstays in the Haight. The amount of destitute and drug-sick individuals became more than their small organization could handle. By late 1967, the Diggers began to turn their various functions over to local churches, medical to the newly opened Haight Ashbury Free Clinic run by David Smith, and they closed their free thrift stores. The Diggers began abandoning the Haight Ashbury District, similar to many others at the time. They dispersed throughout the North Bay, joining communes, and some even began to create communes of their own. Emmett Grogan died of a heart attack induced by a heroin overdose on April 6, 1978, at just 35 years old, on a New York City subway train. Peter Cohan, or Coyote, went on to become a famous actor throughout the 80s, 90s, and into today. As of this video, he is 81 years old. Peter Berg, who stayed with his lifelong partner, Judy Goldhalf, who he met while in the Diggers, died from lung cancer on July 28, 2011. Rest in peace, Emmett Grogan, Peter Berg, and those who have passed from the greatest love and freedom generation of all time.